Welcome, brave souls, to our scary stories. Within these auditory walls, shadows whisper, memories haunt, and the veil between our world and the unknown grows thin. If you've found your way here, perhaps there's a tale waiting, one that's been longing to find you. Close your eyes, let the darkness embrace you, and allow my voice to be your guide through tonight's chilling journey. The night seemed unusually dense, a blanket of fog settling heavily upon the winding road that Marcus Caldwell navigated. His car's headlights struggled to pierce through the thick mist, making the world beyond his windshield appear like a vague shadow play. Marcus's grip tightened on the steering wheel, the leather cool and reassuring beneath his fingers. The soft murmur of the car's engine was occasionally overpowered by the faint rustling of trees that lined the road. Their dark silhouettes swayed in the gentle breeze, casting eerie shadows that seemed to reach out for him. The scent of damp earth and the distant sound of a lonely owl's hoot added to the night's surreal atmosphere. Suddenly, a figure loomed ahead, causing Marcus to slam on the brakes. The tires screeched, and the car lurched to a stop, mere inches from an old man in a military uniform. The man's silver hair was neatly combed back, his face a roadmap of wrinkles. He had a stance that spoke of discipline and respect, and his eyes, though weathered, gleamed with intelligence. Medals, tarnished by time, adorned his jacket, clinking softly as he moved. Marcus's heart raced. Taking a deep breath to calm himself, he rolled down the window. "You all right there, sir?" The old soldier nodded. "Lost my way in this fog, son." Sergeant Payne, he extended a hand, his grip firm. Marcus Caldwell, he replied, shaking the sergeant's hand. "Would you mind giving an old soldier a lift?" Sergeant Payne asked, his voice gravelly with age but carrying an underlying authority. Feeling a mixture of pity and curiosity, Marcus hesitated for a split second before nodding. "Of course, climb in." Sergeant Payne settled into the passenger seat, bringing with him the musty scent of old leather and mothballs. As Marcus drove, the car's interior was filled with a heavy silence. The dim yellow light of the dashboard illuminated their faces, casting long shadows. Finally, Payne broke the silence. "Ever heard stories from the Great Wars, Marcus?" Marcus glanced over, intrigued. "A few from history classes." "Why?" Payne's lips curled into a slight smile. "There's something about this foggy night that takes me back. Mind if I share a tale or two?" "By all means," Marcus replied, curiosity piqued. The road ahead seemed endless as Sergeant Payne began his tales of valor, heartbreak, and the raw, unfiltered horrors of war. Marcus, caught in the web of Payne's storytelling prowess, soon found himself on a journey through time. However, the haunting beauty of the fog-draped night was slowly turning sinister as Marcus began to sense the unfolding of a story that would change his life forever. The road stretched onward, every twist and turn feeling more unfamiliar as Marcus delved deeper into the fog. The cold outside seemed to seep through the car's windows, causing Marcus to shiver slightly and turn up the heat. The warm gust from the vents, combined with Sergeant Payne's rhythmic storytelling, had an almost hypnotic effect. The first tale, Payne began, his voice resonating in the confined space, dates back to the trenches of World War I. He described the muddy battlefields where men spent days and nights with waterlogged boots, the stench of decay thick in the air. Marcus could almost feel the grit beneath his fingers and taste the metallic hint of fear, as he imagined young soldiers waiting for the inevitable whistle that would send them over the top. Payne's voice grew somber as he recounted a tale of a young private, barely 18, who sang to keep spirits high. His voice, Payne reminisced, had the power to momentarily pull us out of that god-forsaken trench and into memories of home. But as the story unfolded, Marcus learned of the private's tragic end during a surprise nighttime raid. The song that once brought hope became a mournful lullaby. As Payne transitioned to tales from World War II, the landscape outside mirrored the shift. The trees grew sparser, their outlines reminiscent of bombed-out buildings, and the fog's hue shifted to a smoky gray. The road's gravel crunched beneath the car's tires, echoing the weight of Payne's words. In the heart of a war-ravaged city, Payne spoke of a nurse named Clara who operated a makeshift hospital. Her resilience and unwavering determination to save lives, even as bombs shattered the world around her, painted a stark contrast against the brutality of war. "She was an angel in the rubble," Payne murmured, his voice thick with emotion, only to reveal Clara's heart-wrenching fate during the last days of the conflict. As the tales from various wars unfolded, a chilling pattern emerged. Each story, rich in detail and emotion, culminated in a tragedy tied to a forewarning that went unheeded. Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. The car's headlights barely cut through the now nearly opaque fog, making the road ahead look like an endless abyss. The weight of Payne's stories pressed down on him, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. The quiet hum of the car's engine and the steady beat of his heart were the only reminders of reality. Another tale, Marcus? Payne asked, his eyes reflecting decades of memories. Swallowing hard, Marcus nodded. The night was still young, and there were many miles yet to go. The darkness outside grew more profound, and the fog thickened, seeming almost alive as it swirled and danced around the vehicle. The car's headlights struggled to penetrate the mist, casting a muted glow that painted everything in a soft, silvery light. Inside the car, the only sounds were the gentle hum of the engine and the rhythmic patter of raindrops beginning to fall. Every war, Sergeant Payne began, his voice quieter now, has its omens, signs that, if heeded, could change a soldier's fate. He then delved into a tale from the Korean War, where a platoon sergeant had dreams of a raven with eyes that glowed a fiery red. This raven would perch silently, watching the troops, before letting out a deafening cry on the eve of a significant loss. Despite the vividness of these dreams, the sergeant dismissed them as stress-induced nightmares. Marcus could almost hear the raven's haunting call, feel the unease it spread among the troops, and sense the heartbreak as Payne revealed the platoon's devastating ambush that followed. But the warnings, Payne continued, leaning closer to Marcus, causing a chill to run down his spine. They don't always come in dreams. The atmosphere inside the car became charged, the air growing colder, as Payne narrated a tale from the Gulf War. A squad, deep in enemy territory, came across an abandoned village. At the village's heart stood a well. Every night, soft whispers echoed from its depths, speaking of upcoming skirmishes and potential ambushes. Those who listened and adjusted their plans survived, while those who scoffed at the desert tales met grim ends. The car's interior lights dimmed slightly, shadows playing on the corners of Marcus's vision. The rain outside intensified, its rhythmic beat on the roof adding a sense of urgency to Payne's words. It wasn't until Payne's voice grew almost inaudible, as he whispered a tale from a conflict not yet documented in history books, that Marcus felt a true knot of dread in his stomach. A tale where soldiers received letters from loved ones they hadn't heard from in years, predicting dire events. Your recent work, Payne turned his gaze directly onto Marcus, has attracted attention. Be wary of a bridge veiled in mist. Marcus felt the world narrow, his heart thudding loudly in his chest. He recalled his investigative articles on a major syndicate, the secrets he had unearthed. Sergeant Payne's warning resonated, making the fog outside appear more menacing, the road ahead more treacherous. How do you know about my work? Marcus's voice wavered. Payne leaned back, his gaze distant. The road reveals much to those who travel it often. Marcus grappled with the implications. The stories no longer just tales of wars long past, but potential omens for his future. The car seemed to move on its own accord, the destination unknown, as Marcus wrestled with his mounting fear and the chilling premonitions of Sergeant Payne. With the road ahead nearly obscured by fog and rain, Marcus found himself straining to see. The once familiar landmarks that lined the highway now seemed twisted and alien, like warped memories from a fever dream. The trees lining the road took on grotesque shapes, their branches like outstretched hands reaching for the car. Suddenly, an old wooden sign, battered and weather-worn, appeared out of the fog, its paint chipped and faded. It read, Harrow's Bridge 2 miles ahead. A feeling of unease settled over Marcus. He couldn't recall any bridge named Harrow's on this route. His grip tightened on the steering wheel as memories of Payne's cryptic warning echoed in his mind. Be wary of a bridge veiled in mist. The rhythmic beat of the rain grew louder, drowning out the comforting hum of the engine. The raindrops created ripples on the road, making it look like a vast, dark river rushing beneath the car. The shadows inside the vehicle grew deeper, with the outside world appearing as if viewed through a murky veil. Sergeant Payne broke the silence. Do you believe in crossroads, Marcus? Points in time where a single decision can alter the course of one's destiny. Marcus swallowed hard, his throat dry. I always believed we forged our own path. Sometimes, Payne mused, looking out into the enveloping darkness. The path chooses us. As the car approached the bridge, Marcus felt a tangible weight in the air, as if the very atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The bridge's archway loomed ahead, its stone structure appearing ancient and worn, moss and vines creeping over its sides. The road over the bridge was narrower, and as the car began its ascent, the world outside seemed to vanish, replaced entirely by the suffocating fog. Halfway across, Marcus felt the car shudder, the engine sputtering. Panic surged as the vehicle slowed. He glanced at the fuel gauge, but it showed half a tank. Payne's voice, heavy with forewarning, cut through his rising panic. Some bridges are best left uncrossed, Marcus. But now that we're here, there's no turning back. The car came to a complete stop at the bridge's apex. In the quiet that followed, a faint whisper seemed to emanate from the very stones of the bridge, echoing the warnings of Payne's tales. Suddenly, a shadowy figure appeared at the far end of the bridge, moving slowly towards them. Its form was indistinct, shrouded in the fog, but its intent was clear. Marcus's instincts screamed at him to flee, but the car remained unresponsive. As the figure drew closer, its features became clearer. A soldier draped in tattered uniforms from eras past, its eyes hollow, echoing the pain and torment of countless wars. As the distance between them closed, Payne's final words hung heavy in the air. Every war has its ghosts, Marcus. Some seek redemption, others retribution. The car's headlights began to dim, the world outside darkening as Marcus braced himself for the impending confrontation with the tormented spirit of Harrow's Bridge. With the dark silhouette drawing ever closer, Marcus felt time warp around him, the seconds stretching into what felt like hours. Each raindrop that fell seemed to move in slow motion, splattering on the roof of the car, and the damp, cold air carried the scent of wet earth and rusted metal. The soldier's form became more tangible as it neared, the ragged uniform telling a tale of battles fought and lost. Nettles tarnished with age clinked softly against one another, creating an eerie melody that pierced the thick foggy silence. Marcus's heart raced, and his mind raced with it. What does it want? Why is it approaching? Payne's voice, now filled with a hint of reverence, whispered, "He's one of mine. One of the many who didn't make it back." The spectral soldier stopped just a few feet from the hood of the car. The empty, hollow pits where eyes once resided seemed to bore into Marcus. Searching, probing. It lifted a gaunt hand, pointing directly at him, before shifting its gaze to Payne. Samuel, Payne breathed out, recognition dawning in his eyes. It's been a long time. Marcus watched, a mere spectator in this surreal reunion, as Payne slowly opened the car door and stepped out. The two figures, one living, one from the annals of history, stood face to face on that ancient bridge, surrounded by swirling mists and the oppressive weight of the past. Samuel's voice, raspy and broken, drifted into the car. "Why did you leave us, Sergeant? Why were we forgotten?" Payne, head bowed, replied with a heavy sigh, "I never left, Samuel. I've been on this road ever since, trying to find a way back to all of you." Marcus, despite the chilling scene unfolding before him, felt a pang of empathy. The weight of command, of decisions made in the heat of battle that led to irreversible losses, was evident in Payne's stance and voice. The wind picked up, its mournful howl echoing the pain of the spirits trapped on Harrow's Bridge. Samuel reached out, touching Payne's shoulder. The gesture was gentle, filled with a longing and sorrow that transcended the barrier between the living and the departed. "We need closure, Sergeant," Samuel whispered, his voice carrying the collective grief of countless lost souls. "Help us find peace." Payne nodded, determination etching his features. "Together, Samuel, we'll find a way." As the two figures, bound by shared memories and haunting regrets, walked side by side to the other end of the bridge, Marcus felt a shift in the atmosphere. The oppressive darkness began to recede, replaced by a soft, luminescent glow that seemed to emanate from the very stones of Harrow's Bridge. As the fog began to lift, the bridge, with its two solitary figures, started to fade from view. And when Marcus finally dared to breathe, he found himself alone in the car, the engine humming smoothly, with the road ahead clear and the weight of the past momentarily lifted. The vanishing fog revealed a landscape that Marcus barely recognized. Instead of the modern asphalt of the highway, the road beneath him was made of old cobblestones, worn smooth by time. On either side, fields stretched out, scarred by trenches and dotted with the remnants of barricades. The sky overhead, once darkened by the storm, now displayed a grim hue of twilight, with smoke trails curling up in the distance. Ahead, the silhouettes of old wartime buildings loomed, makeshift hospitals, command posts, and barracks. It was as though he had driven straight into a history book, landing amidst the throes of a bygone war. But more unsettling than the transformed environment were the figures that roamed this historical vista. Soldiers, nurses, and civilians moved about, their actions replaying moments of their last days. They seemed trapped in a loop of their final memories, unaware of the passage of time. Marcus hesitated, torn between the desire to turn back and the undeniable pull to venture further into this phantom war zone. But the road behind was shrouded once more, the bridge obscured, leaving only one path forward. He drove slowly, the car's wheels crunching on the old road, watching the scenes unfold around him. A group of nurses tending to wounded soldiers, officers discussing strategies on a faded map, and all around, the haunting refrain of a harmonica played by a soldier leaning against a sandbank. Ahead, in the heart of this temporal pocket, stood an old command tent, its entrance flanked by 2 lanterns. The light they cast was not bright, but it beckoned with a warmth that seemed out of place in this chilling panorama. Marcus parked the car and, with a deep breath, stepped into this world of echoes. Inside the tent, a scene was unfolding. Payne, once again tangible, stood across from Samuel, the two surrounded by maps, dispatches, and old communication equipment. Payne looked up, his gaze meeting Marcus's. "I had a feeling you'd follow." Samuel, looking much more solid than he did on the bridge, nodded in acknowledgement. "It seems, Marcus, that you're a part of this now." Marcus frowned, trying to piece it all together. "What is this place? A memory?" Payne sighed. "More than that. It's a fragment, a shard of time where souls are trapped, unable to move on. It's our unfinished business." Samuel stepped forward, his eyes filled with purpose. "We have one more battle to fight, Marcus. One that will decide if we remain here forever or find the peace that's eluded us." Marcus felt a weight settle in his chest. The sorrow, the regrets, the longing, all these emotions swirled around him, threatening to drown him. But amidst it all, he realized one thing. He was here for a reason. "What do you need me to do?" he asked, determination fueling his voice. Payne smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from him. "We need to break the cycle, to end this eternal night. And for that, we need someone who's still tethered to the living world." Together, the 3 of them began to hatch a plan, drawing upon the combined knowledge of both the living and the departed. And as the twilight deepened, a newfound hope ignited in the heart of the ghostly battlefield. The ancient harmonica's mournful tune continued to drift through the wartime haze, its melancholic notes underscoring the gravity of the plan being hatched inside the command tent. "Time behaves differently here," Payne began, spreading out a worn map on a rickety wooden table. It showed the battlegrounds, trench lines, and key strategic points. "At the heart of this eternal twilight lies an artifact. We believe it binds us to this place." Marcus leaned in, trying to discern the various points marked. "And what is this artifact?" Samuel, with a heavy sigh, replied, "It's a pocket watch, belonging to a general from our time. He was said to have made a pact with unknown forces to ensure victory. But instead, it trapped all of us in this endless loop of our final moments." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "So, we need to find this pocket watch and destroy it," Payne interjected, his voice firm. "Only then can the cycle be broken, freeing every soul ensnared in this temporal prison." "But it won't be easy," Samuel added. "The watch is heavily guarded, not just by the lingering spirits of those who once protected the general, but also by the very forces that imbued the artifact with its power. The realization that he was their connection to reality, their tether to the tangible world, weighed heavily on Marcus. He felt both honored and overwhelmed by the task at hand. Yet, amidst the ancient sorrow surrounding him, Marcus felt an unwavering resolve solidify within. "We'll need a distraction," Marcus said, tracing possible routes on the map with his finger. "Something to divert the attention of the guards and the energies bound to the watch." Payne nodded, his eyes gleaming with a strategic light. "That's where our fellow soldiers come in. While they can't interact with the artifact, they can still engage the guards." The tense atmosphere grew thick with anticipation as they discussed, planned, and strategized. With each passing moment, the harmonica's tune became more uplifting. as if sensing the hope that was growing within the trio. Hours, or what felt like hours, passed. The plan was set. Marcus would lead an assault on the heart of the temporal prison, using the combined might of Payne's knowledge and Samuel's experience to navigate the battlefield. Their spectral allies would create chaos, drawing out the guards and energies, allowing Marcus the crucial moments he'd need to locate and destroy the pocket watch. As they exited the command tent, ready to set their plan into motion, the harmonica's tune reached a crescendo. The ghostly soldiers, sensing the impending battle, formed ranks, their ethereal forms glowing with a soft light. The final fight for freedom was about to begin. The battlefield, bathed in the eerie glow of twilight, seemed to come alive. The haunting silhouettes of soldiers took their positions, forming lines and waiting for the signal to begin. It was a scene of both tragic beauty and chilling anticipation. Marcus stood alongside Payne and Samuel, taking in the sight. He felt the cool, misty air against his skin, the tension winding up within him like a coil ready to spring. Without warning, a horn sounded in the distance, its mournful cry echoing across the fields. The ethereal soldiers charged forward, their translucent forms shimmering in the half-light. The very ground beneath them vibrated with the energy of their determination. From his vantage point, Marcus could see the spectral guards react, drawing forth from their posts and converging on the advancing troops. A dance of light and shadow commenced as the two forces clashed, a ballet of memories and lost hopes. He turned to Payne, who nodded, signaling it was time. Together with Samuel, they began their own advance, sneaking past the skirmishes and heading straight for the heart of the battlefield. Samuel's recollections guided them, avoiding traps and circumventing heavily guarded areas. Soon, they reached an old, dilapidated structure, the general's command post. The door, though worn and scarred from countless battles, stood imposingly closed. Payne and Samuel took positions on either side, leaving Marcus to approach. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy, thick with the weight of time. At the room's center, on a table illuminated by an otherworldly glow, lay the artifact, a pocket watch, its hands frozen at the stroke of midnight. Guarding it, an apparition that was neither fully man nor ghost stood with a malevolent aura, its eyes fixed on Marcus. The very air seemed to crackle with the energy emanating from this entity. Marcus, summoning every ounce of courage, stepped forward. Words of confrontation were unnecessary. The intent was clear in both their gazes. The entity lunged, its form shifting and swirling, attempting to overwhelm Marcus. But Samuel and Payne leaped into action, using their spectral forms to hold it back, giving Marcus a brief opening. He dashed for the pocket watch, feeling the pull of its power. As his fingers closed around it, memories flashed before his eyes, memories not his own. Wars, love, betrayal, hope, a whirlwind of emotions. With a shout, Marcus slammed the watch onto the ground, shattering it. The room trembled, a shockwave emanating from the broken artifact. The menacing entity let out a soundless scream, dissolving into the ether. The battlefield, once filled with ghostly soldiers in their timeless struggle, began to fade. The twilight gave way to the familiar night, the storm from earlier still raging outside. Marcus, exhausted and disoriented, found himself back on the highway. The storm seemed to wane, the clouds parting to reveal a starry night. His car stood a few meters away, the engine still humming softly. As he approached it, a gentle whisper carried by the wind reached his ears. The voices of Payne and Samuel filled with gratitude and relief, bidding him farewell. The whispering veteran's tale had found its conclusion, leaving Marcus forever changed, bearing the weight of memories and the legacy of souls finally set free. You've journeyed with us through the corridors of fear and emerged, perhaps, a little different than when you began. The tales we share on our scary stories aren't merely words, they are keys, unlocking the doors we often fear to open. Until next time, remember, the most chilling tales are often those we tell ourselves in the silence of the night. Sleep well, dear listeners. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.